everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to do a brand new video today on logging into your application with Facebook and Firebase for Flutter. Now, one little note here, logging in with Facebook is not for the faint of heart, so make sure you have some experience with Firebase and have done at least one project with Firebase before you proceed to this step. You'll need a Flutter project, you'll need a Firebase project, and you'll need to connect the two. And if you need some help with that, I have a short 10-minute video I will put the link to up here. Walk through that first, get those connected. I'm going to run this command here on the screen to create my app. I'm going to use the --org flag to create a unique bundle identifier, or a package name as it's called in Android. You don't have to do that, but sometimes you can run into conflicts with these third-party providers if your package name is generic, like the one that is produced with the demo Flutter app. So if all that sounds good, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I have created my Flutter project. I have created a Firebase project, which I called Facebook Login, and I have connected the two, and I've run the app, and I'm not getting any errors. So that tells me I have successfully linked my Flutter app to my Firebase app. And I'd like to start with the user interface. So let's just mock that out first, and then we can start to add the login logic. So let's do a little bit of cleanup here. I'm going to go to main.dart, and I'm just going to take out these comments here. And I'm going to get rid of everything from class my homepage down. All right, and that'll temporarily give me an error. I'm okay with that. Inside my lib folder, I'm going to create a new folder called screens, and I'm going to have two screens in this app. So I will have a file called login.dart and one also called home.dart. And if we go to login, I just want to create a stateless widget, so I'll just type STL, let that fill that in, and we'll call it login. And I'm just going to add an import for Flutter material. Like that. We'll go to home, we'll do the same thing, STL home, and we'll just let the auto import take care of bringing in the package Flutter material. And then so in the main.dart file, we're going to change the home to a login and let that import as well. All right, nice looking app there. All right, and I also want to change the brightness here. We're going to do this in dark mode. Brightness.dark. And let's change the title to Facebook Login. All right, nifty. So let's go to login.dart, and in place of our container, let's take out the container and let's build a scaffold. And we won't worry about an app bar, but we'll do a body here, and our body will be a center widget, which will have a child of column. And we'll give that some children. Let me format that so it's a little cleaner. And all I want here is a login button in the middle of the page. And for that button, I want to use a package that will just make it easier for us to create that button with the Facebook logo. So I'm going to use a package called Flutter Sign-In Button. So let's go to pub.dev and let's search Flutter Sign-In Button. And it's this one right here, Flutter _ sign-in _ button. I'm gonna grab installing here and grab this dependency and put it right into pubspec.yaml. All right, and I'm not sure if I need to restart, so let's just try it and see what happens there. So for our children, if we go back to login.dart, our only child is going to be a sign-in button. So we can bring in the sign-in button from the package. And we want to give it buttons, dot, and then bring in buttons too. And then you've got all the options here. So we're going to choose Facebook. And we'll give it an on-pressed. And so what I want to do for now in the on-pressed is just navigate to home. So let's just do navigator of context dot push replacement. And inside there we'll do a material page route, our builder, context, and we'll send that over to login. Not login, home. That's what I meant to say. And we'll save that, and it doesn't work, so we do need to restart it. So I'm just going to stop this, and I'm going to restart the application. And I'll hit pause while that does that and come back when it's finished. All right, so there we go. We've got our button there, and we just want to make it centered vertically as well as horizontally. So let's come into our column, and let's do main axis alignment, center, and that should bring that down to the middle. All right, so if we click on that, that should navigate us to our home page, and it does. So let's flip over to that and work on that UI. So we want to take out our container. We want to put a scaffold in there, and also no app bar. We'll just go right to the body. In the body, we'll put a center widget. And the child of that will be a column with children. Let's do children first. There we go. Get my semicolon down here, just get rid of that error. And let's start with text. And let's do a name up here at the top. Let's do Bill Murray. And let's do a circle avatar. So we'll have a display name, we'll have a circle with a picture in it, and then we'll have the log out button. And so for our circle avatar, let's have a background image, which is a network image. And for a network URL, let's go to the web, and you can put anything you want in there. But I'm going to go to a website called Phil Murray. Which has network images of Bill Murray that we can use. So I'm going to copy the image address. And I'm going to put it right in here. All right, we can see we got that up here, and then we want to have our button. So we will do another sign-in button. And we need to bring in buttons.facebook. And so it's called a sign-in button, but we can just create a button, and we can override what it says with text. So let's do that, and instead of saying sign in with Facebook, let's say sign out of Facebook. And we'll give it an on-pressed, and for now, we will just bounce it back to the login page. So let's just do navigator of context, push replacement, and in there we'll put our material page route. Builder and a context, and we will send that back to login. Yep. There we go. So that looks terrible, of course. So we'll come up here to column and we will do outside of children. Let me move children down here. Let's do a main axis alignment so that all bunches in the middle, just like we did on the login page. So main axis alignment center. And for our circle avatar, let's make that bigger. So we've got a background image here. So let's do a radius of 60. Make Bill a little bit bigger. Like that. Let's also make the text a little larger. So we'll do a style there, text style widget. And we'll do a font size of, let's say, 35. All right, that looks good. A little spacing in between would be a good thing. So I'm going to come in between Bill and the picture and do a sized box with a height of 20. And then we'll do a more larger space between the bottom of Bill's face and the sign-in button. So let's do a size box with a height of 100. All right, so there we go. So when we sign into Facebook, we will get our actual profile information and put our profile picture here and replace Bill Murray with our actual name once we have this hooked up to Facebook. So the next step is to create a Facebook app that we can call when we sign in. So let's visit developers.facebook.com. And I've had this forever. There may be a sign-up process if you've never created an app with Facebook. But once you have signed up, you can click My Apps. And I am going to create a new app. And so we have some options here. And for just a login, we want to go with for everything else. And you can see down here, select if you're integrating Facebook login and a couple other options. But we want Facebook login. So let's do sign in demo for my display name. And I can leave all that way. We can hit create app ID. I can verify that I'm not a robot to the robot. All right. And so I'm taken to this dashboard page. We have a Facebook login here and we can go to setup. And we are given quick starts for iOS, Android, and web. So let's start with Android. And we're going to get this whole list of things to do, some of which we want to do and some of which we don't want to do. And we're going to know by looking at the package documentation for the plugin that we're going to use for Facebook. So let's go ahead and add that now and pull up that documentation side by side with this to guide us through that process. So the package that we are going to use for Facebook login is, let's see, it's called Flutter Login Facebook. So if we search that on pub.dev, you got a few options for Facebook sign in. Use this one, Flutter Login Facebook. And so we'll go to installing, we will grab that there, we'll copy, and we'll put that in our pubspec.yaml. And we won't worry about a restart just yet. So if we go to README, we have got pretty good instructions here. The only problem is that it looks like Facebook has kind of recently reshuffled this whole dashboard. So the order of operations here, let's separate these. The order of operations doesn't quite align in the pubspec or in the pub.dev package with what you're actually doing on the dashboard. Although you do want to follow those instructions, like when it says here, complete step 6, provide the development and release key hash. You want to do that, but it isn't step 6 over here, so the steps don't line up. But let's start over here on the Facebook app and let it walk us through, and we can refer back to the pub.dev documentation for what we need to do and don't need to do. So first of all, it's going to offer us to download the Android SDK. We don't need to do that, so click next. This import Facebook SDK, don't need to do that, click next. First thing you need to do is this tell us about your Android project. You need to give it the package name of your project and your main activity here in this line here. So we can get our package name from our project by going to Android, app, src, main, and our Android manifest. And it is right up here at the top under package. So mine is com.julo.facebook_login. Yours might be different than that. But whatever it is, just paste it right in there. And then also paste it down here. And then you can do .main activity, because that is the main activity for Flutter. And we can save that. This will tell you, give you a little warning that it didn't find it on Google Play, and that's because we haven't published it yet, so we're fine with that. We can say use this package name and continue. All right, the next step is to add your development and release key hashes. So for development and for what we're going to do today, we have a command line we can run for Mac OS and one we can run for Windows. If you are going to run this in release mode or publish it, you are going to get a key that you use to publish your app every time. And once you have that, you want to run this with the path to your key store. So you want to put it in a directory that you know where it is and you're not going to lose it, because you only get one of those and you have to keep it secure. And then you can run this right in that directory and you'll get a release key hash. So make sure if you plan to take this to production, you come back and do this step with your release key. But for now, we're just going to do the debug. I am on a Mac, so I'm going to click copy code. I am going to open up a terminal, and I'm going to paste that in there. It's going to ask me for a password, and I'm just going to type Android. And I'm going to get this right here with an equal sign at the end. That is my debug key. I copy it. I come down here to the bottom, and it tells you to put in a debug and a release, and you can put more than one debug. It isn't immediately obvious that this is like a chips thing. You put it in once, and then you can add more. So that's how that works. So I have my hash there, and I'm going to hit save. All right, I'm going to skip this. This is for single sign-on. That's okay as is. This resource manifest, we do need to do this. All right, so there's a couple of parameter strings that we need to set in our strings.xml, which is a default file. If you build a native Android app, it actually doesn't exist in Flutter's Android app, so we're going to have to create it. So we go to Android. I'll just start an Android from scratch here. We go to Android, we go to app, we go to src. We're going to go down to the res folder. We're going to go to values, and we only have styles. We're going to want to add a new file called strings.xml. And this is the one where the documentation is not super complete, because it's going to tell you to paste these in, and absolutely do that. Copy that, paste that into your new strings.xml. What is missing though is there's actually a root element here, and it's not covered in the documentation because you get the root element when you create a normal Android application, but we're not getting it with Flutter. So to create the root element here in Flutter, we just have to wrap it in a resource. So I'm going to come above string here, and I'm going to create a root element called resources, like that. And then I'm going to cut those strings, and I'm going to put them inside that root resource element. And then the other thing you need to do is a app name is required. So I'm going to create a string called name equals, and I'm just going to grab that from main.dart, this Facebook login, and we'll put that there. I'm sorry, that shouldn't go there. This should be, name should be app_name. And then in the actual element, we put Facebook login or whatever the title of our app is. That's required as well. And because it's a Flutter app, it didn't build that. And so we need to add it in there. All right, then we need to add this user permission for the internet into our Android manifest. So I'm going to copy that. And that is also inside of this main. We've already been in here, Android manifest, to grab our package name. And this actually goes outside of the application. So that's going to go right here. And then lastly, we need to add this metadata for our activity. So I am going to click copy code. And I want to come outside of this activity here. Actually, I'll come down below this metadata here with Flutter embedding, and I'm just going to make a note. Facebook login requirements. And let me format that for you. So that just goes right inside the application. And after this metadata, Android Flutter embedding, like that. So that completes this step, and we can skip the next step, log app events. We can skip this add Facebook login button. We can skip register callback. I think we can skip 10. Yep, we can skip 10 as well. So we're done there. So let's skip over to iOS. And kind of the same deal. Some of this will apply, some of this will not. So you can see your instructions here for iOS. I'm just going to go through each one. And so 1, you don't need to do, but 2, you need a bundle identifier. And to get that, I'm going to open the project in Xcode. And it will be right here on the General tab, right there, bundle identifier. Could be slightly different from Android. Android used the underscore and iOS did not. That's fine as long as we are matching to what we're setting up here for each one of those environments. So we'll save that. We'll continue. We're going to just go ahead and leave the single sign-on where it is with next. And we need to configure our info plist. So we do need to do this. So let's go back here to Xcode. Let's find, shrink this down a little bit. Let's find our info plist. Let's right click and let's open as source code. So that'll give us just a straight XML. And the first one we need to do is the CF bundle URL type. If you are adding other plugins like this, you might already have this in your info plist. In that case, what you want to do is add the string here to the array, and you want to add this key down here. We don't have it yet, so I'm just going to take it wholesale, and I'm going to come after right inside of the DICT closing tag, and I'm going to paste it in. So I hope that was clear. This may already be here for, say, some other plugin like Apple Sign-In, and then you would just want to sync it up so that you're filling in this string in the array and that you have this key string value down here. All right, same thing for LS queries schemes. You might already have it, in which case you just want to add these strings to the array. We do not have it. So we'll paste it down here and take out that space. All right, and we're all set there. We can click next. And I think that might be it for iOS. We can skip the Connect App Delegate. We can skip the Facebook button, skip the login status, add permissions. We can skip that as well. And we are done for iOS. So that's all we had to do there. Let's move Xcode out of the way. All right, so let's take care of the Firebase end. So with this still up here, let's go to our Firebase console. Let's go to authentication, And let's go ahead, if you haven't already, go to sign in method, and we're going to want to, let me get this one out of here. It's left over from another demo. Let's just start fresh. I'm going to go to sign in method, and I'm going to enable Facebook. And when I do, it's going to ask me for an app ID and an app secret. So that was another app. So let's go to settings, basic on our app. And our app ID we can grab right up here, paste it in there. And our secret, we're going to need to click show. It's going to ask us to log in with our password. That's just your Facebook password. And then you can grab the app secret, copy it, paste it in here, and click save. Okay, we should be all set with the app, so I'm going to get that out of here. And we're actually all set with the console, but I'm going to leave that up for now. A few packages more that we need to grab, so I'm going to stop this. And we are definitely going to need Firebase Auth. So let me make this smaller. Let's go to pub.dev and let's get Firebase Auth. And grab that dependency, put it into pubspec.yaml. Now I'm also going to want to use provider. So we'll go back to the main page. We'll grab, well, I can see it right here. You can search it, or if it happens to be up there, you can grab it there. And that should be it for our packages. So I'm going to move this browser out of the way, and we are ready to start our sign-in logic. So I'm going to get this running. Go to main, and we will start debugging. And while that runs, let's go ahead and create an auth service. So I do want to set this up like it's a real app. Let's collapse Android here. I don't want to do everything just on main.dart or in a couple of stateful widgets. I want to set this up as if it was an app that can expand. And so I'm going to do a new folder, and I'm going to do services, and I'm going to create an auth service, and any interaction with Firebase Auth is going to happen in here. So we'll do a service, we'll do a new file, and we'll call this auth_service.dart. That will be a class called auth service, and we'll need an instance of our auth, so we'll do a final underscore auth is going to be equal to Firebase auth.instance. And I want to be able to do a few things here in Firebase Auth, really three things. I want to be able to monitor the Firebase user. I want to be able to sign in with a credential, and I want to be able to log out. So let's build ourselves a stream of Firebase user, and we'll give it a getter, and we'll call that current user. And that is going to point to auth.onState changed. So that is going to be a stream of our Firebase user, and anytime we log out, log in, or change our login, we're going to get a result here in our current user. I want to be able to get an auth result from a function we'll call sign in with credential, and that is simply going to point to the auth, sign in with credential. So we'll pass in a credential for that. And that is auth.signin with credential. So that is the generic function that allows us to pass a credential, whether it be from Facebook or Google or Apple. We pass that to Firebase, and it will do the signing in for us with Firebase based on that token. And then lastly, we want to be able to log out. So we'll build ourselves a future void, and a function called logout, which will point to our auth service.signout. All right, so those are the services we need for the functions we need for auth service. So let's give ourselves another class. Let's do a folder in lib called blocks, and let's put our application logic inside there. And we'll do that inside a file called auth_block.dart. And so this would be a class of auth block. And we will bring in our auth service as a variable called auth service, which is an instance of our auth service class. And we're also going to want an instance of Facebook login. So let's call that FB, and we'll set that equal to Facebook login. All right, so I want to be able to, I don't want to have to reach into the service from any widget. I want this auth block to be kind of the intermediary. We'll serve this up to all our widgets. We'll use provider to make sure we're using one single instance of this auth block. And so I need to do some pass-through functions here, and one of them is to get the current user from the service. So we'll just create another stream here of a Firebase user. And it will be a getter, and it'll be called current user, and we will just point to auth service current user. And I need to bring in Firebase user. We are going to want some functions in here, and one of them is login with Facebook. All right, so let's do a print here, and let's just say starting Facebook login. And let's shrink this up so we can see the emulator again. And let's go to our login page. And instead of this navigator here, let's bring in our auth block and hook up the login function to this button. And all it's doing right now is printing to the console. That's fine, but let's just make sure we've got it wired up properly. So to bring in our auth block, we do need to wrap the widget, the material app, out here in main.dart. So let's visit main.dart. And let's wrap our material app with a widget. And let's make that widget a provider, just a plain provider. We'll import the provider package. And to create our provider, we'll do create, we'll do context. And we will create an instance of the auth block here, and we will just pass that one instance around the application through provider. So now if we go back to login, we can bring in an instance of the auth block here. So we'll say var auth block equals provider, bring in provider.of context, and then we just need to specify the type we're looking for, and that is of type auth block. And that will allow us to replace this navigator with auth block.login Facebook. And can actually get rid of that import for home if we want to, just clean things up. And if I click on this, I should see starting Facebook login now. All right, so let's revisit our auth block and do a little bit more here in our login Facebook. So we're actually logging into Facebook. And the actual process of logging into Facebook only involves this. So we do a final variable, which we'll call res, and we will want to equal that to await. So let's add the async keyword up here. FB login, and we need to give it some permissions. And that's an array, and we're going to want Facebook permission public profile, and we're also going to want Facebook permission. Let's just grab email. And then you can read in the documents there, but you do need to implement a switch. So this is covered in the documentation. And you need to do 3 cases. You need to do, first of all, we're switching on res.status. And we need to do case Facebook login status success. We need to do case Facebook login status dot cancel. And then we need to do case Facebook login status dot error. And, you know, if you have some kind of notification system in your app, you can implement that here on cancel or error if you want. We're just going to do, there was an error to the console, and for cancel, we'll just do the same thing. We'll just do print the user canceled the login. So that will cover that case. We want to do the bulk of our work in success, and we're just going to print it worked for now. All right, so let's give that a run. If you can do this on your own device, it's going to be a lot easier. I'm doing it on an emulator, so I just ran it once and I had to do a whole bunch of gobbledygook setup, but I'm through that now. So once you log in with Facebook, so the first time you do this, you have to log in, you have to do 2-factor authentication, all that stuff. But once you're logged in, you can click continue, and we can see down here it worked. All right, so this worked, but what did it actually do? It actually went out to the Facebook server and confirmed that we are a person who can log in through that application. We haven't done a thing with Firebase yet. So what we need to do is take this response that we got from Facebook, turn it into a generic auth result, and then pass that on to Firebase so we can log in with the token that we got from Facebook. And so we want to do all that down here in the success. So if it failed or if they canceled it, we don't want to do anything. So this is fine up here by itself. Let me take these spaces out here. And this is where we want to do our logic. So the first thing we need to do is get the token. And so we're going to do a final Facebook access token, and we can draw it, we'll call it FB token. We can draw it right out of our results. So res.access token. And then I want to convert that to auth credential. So a final auth credential of credential is going to be equal to Facebook auth provider dot get credential. And we want to pass in an access token. So I'm just going to make this bigger. And so access token is the property we are populating, and that comes from our FB token dot token. And then lastly, we want to take that user credential and we want to send it to Firebase so that we are logged in through Firebase. So we will, and we will call that a result. And what we want to do is await, and we created a function for this in our auth service. We called it sign in with credential, and we just needed an auth credential. So we're all set there. We can do that. And at that point, we should be signed in. So let's do another print statement. Let's do some string interpolation here. And let's put result.user.displayName is now, need to be inside the quote there, is now logged in. All right, so let's give that another run. And there'll be a lot here, but I do see down at the bottom it worked, and then I see Andrew Julo is now logged in. So we're We've contacted Facebook, we've gotten our token, and we've been able to pass that successfully to Firebase, and we are logged in with Firebase. So while we're here, before we move on, let's give ourselves a log out function as well. So if we come down after, let's make sure we get outside of login Facebook. So that's actually down here. Let's just give ourselves a log out because we'll want to be able to do that on the next screen. And all we have to do is call our auth service.logout. We took care of that when we built our auth service. And that should pretty much be it for our auth block. So the next thing we need to do is make sure that this page actually responds when we log in. It should take us to the home page. And so there's a couple of ways to go about this. It's a pretty common pattern to log in and need to leave a page. The way I like to do it is I convert this to a stateful widget. So let's go to login.dart and let's take this from a stateless to a stateful widget. And then when we create the state, I like to just set up a listener. And remember, we have a stream with our Firebase user available to us by that stream. So anytime that changes, we can run an operation. And if we decide we're logged in, we can just boot this to the next screen. So let's do an init state. All right, here. Got to be in the state. There we go. So we go init state. And what I want to do is bring in an instance of my auth block so I can tap into that current user stream. So let's create an auth block up here. And it will be the same as this. So I'm just going to copy that, paste it in here, except when I'm in an init state or a dispose, you also want to add a flag for listen equals false. So there's no need to listen. This is just going to fire once. So we're just using this to locate the class, and we don't need to keep listening to it afterwards. And so we can do authblock.currentUser.listen, and I'm going to rename event FBUser because that's what we're going to get. And what I want to do is if FBUser does not equal null, in other words, we're logged in, then I just want to push it to the home page. So we'll do navigator.of.context.pushReplacement. And we'll do a material page route with a builder and a context. And we are going over to home. And if I do that and I save that, because we haven't we didn't initialize the state when we came into this page, we're going to want to restart it. All right. And as soon as we restart it, we are logged in already, so we get forwarded to this page right here, the home page, which is what we want. So let's visit the home page. So I'm going to go to screens. I'm going to go to home.dart. And first of all, we want to take this send back to the login page. We want to get rid of this because we're sending back to the login page and it's immediately bouncing us back to home because that's what we've told it to do if we're logged in. So let's get rid of this. Let's bring in our auth block here. So we'll do in var auth block equals provider of context, and we want an auth block. Bring that in. And then we should be able to do auth block.logout there. All right, and we don't want to click on that yet because that's not going to do anything for us because we don't have a listener up here. So we want to do basically the reverse of what we did in the login, and we want to listen for the provider, and if the provider no longer exists, we want to send them back to login. So we need to convert this to a stateful widget, just like we did before. We need to add a listener, So I'm going to create some room here. We'll do an init state. I'm just going to go to login. I'm going to copy their init state here. I'm going to bring it into home, paste it there, and I'm going to modify as needed. So if Facebook user equals null, which means they've been logged out, in that case we want to send them not to home, but to login. All right, so if we give that a shot, if we click on this, it should log us out and send us back. That's not correct. Oh, I did log in here. I needed to do log out. So let's cancel that. Get me out. Sign out. Okay, so then it sends us right back. If we sign in again, we should go to the login screen. If we sign out here. All right, so that works. You may notice down here in the terminal, we are getting an error about the login.init state. And the reason for that is what we're doing here is when we init state, we are listening to the current user. And then when we leave, we are destroying this widget, and then we come back in and we are doing an init state. And we're trying to listen to the current user for a second time. Now, we could address that in our stream to allow for multiple subscriptions on the stream, but this is kind of why streams are written this way in the first place. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is if we leave this page, we don't want to be listening to this anymore. We want to destroy that subscription. And so we can go about that by creating a variable. So we'll just create a stream subscription here. And it'll be of type Firebase user because that's our object type. And we'll just call it home state subscription. And rather than just call auth block, we will set it equal to home state subscription. And then down below our init state, we can do a dispose method. And when we dispose of this, we can do home state subscription dot cancel, like that. And so we want to do the exact same thing in the login. Anytime you are setting up these subscriptions, you want to make sure that you are providing for their cancellation. So stream subscription, also Firebase user. And we'll call this login state subscription. And so we'll set login state subscription equal to our stream there, and then we will create a dispose method to get rid of it. All right, and if we restart our state and we try that flipping around again, get rid of that, clear out our console, we sign in, we sign out, we sign back in. All right, and we can see we don't have that issue again because every time we leave the page, we are canceling our subscriptions and we're not doubling up on those. All right, so most of the work is done here. The last thing we need to do is just customize this profile page. We'll get rid of Bill and we'll put us in there. So we'll go to home.dart. And we have our streaming user in the background here in our auth block, and we want to be able to use that. So to use that, we're going to set up a stream builder, and I'm going to set it around the column because I want to be able to use it here and here. And so I am just going to wrap with stream builder, and I'm going to be getting a Firebase user, and my stream is authblock.currentUser. That is the pass-through we set up to the Firebase Auth that listens to the current user. Now, while that's loading, if I don't have data, I just want to provide, if not snapshot.hasData, I just want to return a circular progress indicator, like that. Otherwise, I'll let it come down here to the column. And for the text, let's get rid of Bill Murray, and that will be snapshot.data. Display name, that's an object in our Firebase user. And here, for our network image, we can do snapshot.data.photo URL. All right. So if we do that, we can see that this is very fuzzy here, and you can clean that up in Facebook by appending the size that you want there. So I'm just going to do plus width equals 400 and height equals 400. Maybe I'll do 5. And I get a higher resolution profile. Just try it one more time. I log in. And there it is. Grabs our name, our profile pic, and we can log out right here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here. This was something that I had to do for a recent app, and I figured why don't we just put it down in a video while it is still fresh in my mind. So I hope that you found this useful and helpful. And if you did, please consider liking and subscribing to this channel. We would appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time.